There's a switch.
And we are live, and we are here with the man, the myth, the legend who has all the answers to all of your questions about the writing business, James Maxey. I hope I'm not putting any pressure on you.
I thrive under pressure. So
You're putting pressure on us, Mike, because we have to ask the right questions to get those answers out.
No, EL's in the chat already. He'll
All
ask his
right,
questions.
I'm going to give him until 7:16 tonight.
So we play this game, James, because EL asks a lot of questions, and YouTube thinks he's a bot, and so it bans him. And so we always try to pick at what point he's going to get banned in the show.
Okay.
So, Rode,
and
you
I'll
said
be reading these questions or hearing them.
We'll put them up on the screen, and we'll ask you. But Rode, you said 16 or 17?
16.
I'm going to be optimistic and say 26 minutes tonight.
That's not a bad. Tim McKay's got 7:23, so okay, good.
Okay, we got to get moving. James,
Yes.
I told everyone you've written 25 plus books, but to be honest, I don't know. How many books have you written?
I have no clue. I don't.
It's always a lot when they lose count.
Yeah, no. My answer depends on what I count as a book. Because I have a very successful line of short story collections that are my own short stories. I've written every word in them. So, obviously I'm counting those as books, but they're not novels. And some people don't count short story collections as a book. Because I didn't sit down and write a book. I wrote stories that got published in magazines and anthologies that I then just collected. So did I write those books? Hard to say. Then I also publish with my wife. We edit anthologies where other authors contribute stories. So we've published 4 family-friendly anthologies. My own writing can be a little PG 13 and up. So we were looking for something I could safely hand a 10-year-old and say, here, you'll enjoy this. So we now edit a line of anthologies. And, there are times when I'm counting those and times when I'm not, because the honest truth is I probably work as many hours putting together an anthology, even though other people have written all the words in it. I still probably put in exactly as much labor as I do to bring one of my own novels to market. And then, then I've got the Dragon Apocalypse series, the Dragonscape series, Bitterwood series, 2 different superhero series, and a Wizard of Oz novel. So all in all, it adds up. Oh, and then I have omnibuses. So all in all, it adds up to a lot of different editions and formats. And there's I would like to when I started this year, I was turning 60 in March, and I was like, I feel like I should have 60 books written by now. And I was like, I'm going to set myself a goal and have 70 books by the time I'm 70. And I'm already thinking that was a little, ambitious. I don't know that I can do that, but we'll see. I think the key will be I need to learn to write shorter books.
For anybody out there who goes to Comic-Cons anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic region, you have probably seen James at a show with an enormous, wall of books at the thing, with some other stuff as well. But you have a pretty big range, don't you, with your the shows that you do? Because you do quite a few, yeah?
Yeah, no, I do close to 30 shows a year. I do some really big shows. I just did Gen Con this year for the first time. Probably the largest crowd I've ever been exposed to. I used to do Dragon Con, but I never went there as a vendor. So I would go there as as part of their author track and be on panels and would sell some books at their United signing. But I've never really tabled there. But my big shows, I do multiple Galaxy Cons, some fan expos, Steel City Con in Pittsburgh. I do 3 times a year. and can never give up that table. If you give up the table, you lose it, and it will take you forever to get back in. And so yeah, it's a, for me, it is the best pathway I have to being happy, knowing that people are buying my books, and without being at the mercy of an algorithm, because Amazon has very specific ideas about what you can do and what you should be writing and what you should be selling. So I'm going to hold up this book here.
Put it right up to the camera, James.
Yeah. So this is a book called Life in a Moment. This is one of the short story collections I was telling you about. It collects 10 stories that I've published in various outlets over the last 5 years. Online, it does nothing. I mean, I doubt I have sold 24 copies of this since I released it. I released it on Halloween of last year, and two copies a month would be an amazing month for this to sell through Amazon. Then I go to shows though, and this is the hardcover edition. This sells for $25. And I sell it either alone or as part of a bundle of other paperbacks. And by itself, at the last show, I sold my 40th hardcover. So that is, a quite a bit of revenue coming in a little under a year from stuff I'd already been paid to write by other outlets. And why Amazon won't push short story collections is a complete mystery to me. But they reward, the romantic fantasy and other hot genres. And if you're not in one of those genres, they go away. But then you go out into the real world, and a book like this or a book like Cryptids, it's a nonfiction book about Bigfoot and Nessie, etc. These sell like hotcakes in the real world. So it's, I think in real life, I'm discovering that readers have a much more diverse taste in reading than the internet gives them credit for. And so I like that there's still this one path out there that's available to me to connect with readers who aren't at the mercy, not be at Amazon's whim of what's going to sell and what's not.
Yeah. So we have a whole slew of questions from EL. Who is the woman in green behind you?
So this is Sorrow. Yeah. So it's the way that my camera is set up. You can't see the top. The top says listen, because she's I'm using her to promote Audible. This is the third. This is a heroine of the third book of the Dragon Apocalypse. This is a series I pitched to my editors at Solaris as Bad Girls, Big Dragons. This was back when I still was primarily publishing traditionally. And all these are written from there. They have a bad girl protagonist in all of them. So this is the woman on the front here she's called Infidel. She's a religious heretic, and also an invulnerable swordswoman. You discover the secrets of how she got her nickname and her invulnerability over the course of the book. The woman in green is Sorrow. She's a witch. Her father was a judge who hung witches. His own mother, her grandmother, was accused of being a witch, and he hung her. And so as a child, she ran away from home, vowing to become the most powerful witch that the world has ever seen. And she's intent on destroying her father's church and his king and every part of the society that made it possible for a man to think it's a moral thing to hang its own mother. So it's
daddy issues.
Huh?
Daddy issues.
Daddy issues. Yeah. She's one step away from being a supervillain. But I really think that the cover captured her intensity. It was a very effective banner for as long as I was using it. I've had to retire it recently. Both of these banners were banners that I've had to swap out. I now have a cryptid banner, and the banners are under $100. You can get them online for like $80, and they are far and away, if you're going to do live events, the smartest advertising dollars you could spend. They will. The first show I had my cryptid banner at, y'all actually were at that show. It was Virginia Beach. And before that, I was selling 5 or 6 copies of the book per show. At that show, I sold like 15 or 20 copies. When you have a banner up, people notice it. They can ignore the little 8-inch tall cover on your table that's mixed in with all the other covers. But if it is popping up, it's pretty good. I see a question about the why cryptids. My cryptid book is totally a labor of love. Oops, let's get to the front. It's a nonfiction. Whenever I was growing up in the 70s, that was like the golden era of weird science, ancient astronauts, the Bermuda Triangle, UFOs, and Bigfoot were like the 4 horsemen of the weirdness. And my mom used to work at a Rose's, which was a chain of department stores that older people might recall. There's still a few left here and there, but they had paperback racks. And the way that paperbacks get returned to their publisher is they tear off the cover and send the cover back and throw away the rest of the book. And so my mom would bring home just box after box of coverless books. And so many of these were these ancient astronaut and cryptid books. So, as a kid, I just got super fascinated in cryptids. And I still I don't watch a lot of television, but I'm a sucker for a good cryptozoology show. Even though I know exactly how every episode is going to go. You're going to get some fuzzy
aliens,
a little bit of blurry video, and spoiler alert, they aren't going to find Bigfoot. But I still watch it, so I wrote this book looking at the scientific plausibility of the various cryptids. I'm not interested in eyewitness accounts. I just want to know if these are creatures that make sense biologically. Could evolution produce a Yeti or a Bigfoot? And the answer for them is obviously yes. You get to another cryptid I love is Mothman, and the evolutionary probability there is a bit lower. It's a little bit harder to come up with the lineage and the fossil record that could lead you to a man-sized being with moth wings.
You said that you were publishing traditionally for a while.
Yes.
What made you switch to indie, and which do you like better and why?
So, I don't regret switching from Trad Pub to indie. The thing about traditional publishing, they've got the distribution networks. If you have your book in Barnes and Noble, and when I started, Borders was still a thing, and Walden Books, and if your book was widely distributed in these stores, you were going to sell thousands of books, assuming that your publisher had done their job and put the right cover on it and had the right marketing copy and had known enough about the market to know whether your book was going to sell or not. So I still run into people who read those Solaris editions because they were so widely distributed. As an indie author, I'm kind of more limited. I can sell books on Amazon, but that requires a lot of advertising, or else I have to give my books away. I do freebie promos. You can get Great Shadow on Amazon or Google or Apple for one more day for absolutely free as a download. Tomorrow I'm going to start changing everywhere to the whopping price of 99 cents. So there's this. The paradox is, you can sell thousands of books through traditional publishing, but your share of that book is tiny. It's 7 or 8%, and of not of the cover price, but of the wholesale price. So it's really like less than 5% of the revenue being generated. That book is making it to you as an author. Meanwhile, I mentioned selling these hardcovers. I'm paying like $9 for this hardcover and selling it for 25, and that covers quite a few books. Whatever I sell it. But the downside is, I have to be there physically working to move the product. So everything is a trade-off. I left Solaris at a time, not to get too inside here. I'm old enough that when I sold my original Bitterwood series, they didn't buy the ebook rights, because back then no one was publishing ebooks in 2005. And so they had in the original contract a thing saying we purchase all rights, including ebook rights. And my agent was like, well, you don't publish ebooks, so we're going to strike this. And if you decide to publish ebooks in the future, come back to us. And so they were like, sure. And so I wound up keeping my ebook rights. And then around 2009, they did come to me and say, hey, we have this writer we want you to sign to give us your ebook rights, and we will pay you 12% royalties. And like the very same month, Amazon announced you can now self-publish ebooks, and we will pay you 70% royalties. And I'm like, wow, one of these is a slightly larger number. I was like, how could I learn to format an ebook? And it turns out it really wasn't that complicated. I threw it up with a terrible for Bitterwood, and started covering my water bill and my phone bill, and it was earning me a little bit of money every month. I started putting more and more work up on Amazon. And I was like, wow, I really like this. I love how transparent it is. When you're with traditional publishing, you have no idea whether your marketing efforts are doing anything at all. If you go and speak at Dragon Con and are on a panel, and the next week you call, you talk to your editor, that boost sales any, they don't know. They don't have that data. So whereas with Amazon, if I run an ad, I can sit there in real time, watching my promo, working, and watching the books being downloaded. So I really, like that control. So around 2014, Amazon decided they came to me with an offer. Hey, we want to put together an omnibus of your Bitterwood novels. And that omnibus edition would have included the ebook rights to the omnibus, which means I would no longer have the ebook rights for myself. And by then, this was, a pretty nice chunk of money. I'd already paid off my car early. I was like, I can't give up this money. And so I was like, I think it'd be better. I had 6 books in print with them. And I said, I'd rather, instead of giving you the ebook rights to this, I'd rather you just give me the print rights back to the other books, and I will do what I can with them. And that was I had no regrets about that decision for a long time. Today I see in 2015 to 2018, I thought the writing was on the wall, and that we would be entering 2024 with almost no bookstores left in the world. I thought Amazon was going to put Barnes & Noble out of business. I don't know if y'all remember, but in the late teams, Barnes and Noble just seemed to be making one suicidal move after another. And I thought, if Barnes and Noble goes, there's going to be scattered stores here and there, but it's pretty much going to be over for traditional publishing. But then it turned out traditional publishing, had Fourth Wing and other things, and I'm content. I make a decent amount of revenue as an indie publisher, but I've never even gotten close to earning six figures a year. And the only authors I know who get to those sort of numbers are in the traditional publishing community. There's also plenty of authors who go with traditional publishing and sell 2 books of their trilogy, and then they cancel the 3rd book, and they come out of it with their advance and never see anything else. But the top end for trad pub is pretty enormous compared to what I could believe is the top end. So I see the question: what is one thing that you wish you knew at the start of your writing career? If I had the thing I now know that I didn't know then is that other people actually buy and read my books, and that I can't just be writing just to make myself happy. So I have a tendency to write quirky, against the grain types of books, and I have my fan base that really likes that. But I also can look at some of my work and you think, this is, I wrote a book that only, 1,000 people in the world are going to love. And if I were more aware of it, I would probably be looking for titles that, 100,000 people or 1 million people are going to love.
Hey, real quick here, James, we've got a bunch of questions. I'm going to run through some questions and just give me a real quick answer on each one.
Yeah, because I'm seeing them when they pop up, but then they disappear.
Yeah. What book is your bestseller?
Oh, Bitterwood, the complete collection. This is the omnibus edition of it. It is a 4-book saga, the original trilogy that Solaris published, plus a prequel novel called Dawn of Dragons, plus a bonus short story. I sold this in softcover for $30, and it is far and away, my top title. So I've had a more success with it as an audiobook and as an ebook than anything else. Between the first book and the omnibus, the ebooks have had close to like over 100,000 downloads actually. But a lot of that was timing. I got very lucky, and I got into ebooks early, and there was like this hot minute between 2012 and 2015 where Amazon was, I don't want to say easy to manipulate, but Amazon had predictable patterns that if you did this and this, then you would probably go see some sales. So the also balts were huge. It was important to get your books listed on the also balts of a more popular book. So you would search your key. You'd try to optimize your keywords to have the same thing. Perma-free books were big back then. You would take the first book of a trilogy or whatever for free, and it would get a lot of people to download it. And you would hope that it would translate into sales, and for me, it did. I had plenty of people go on to read further books in the series by giving away free first books. But a lot of that has changed. The The fact is, when I started self-publishing ebooks, Amazon boasted that they had a catalog of 700,000 ebooks available. Today, they have more ebooks than they can count. They're literally having thousands of ebooks uploaded every hour of the day. The catalog of books is just exploding. And it creates a lot of noise for you to try to fight against the signal. It used to be if I could get a book, if I could promote a book with pricing or an appearance or whatever, if I could get myself into like a top 10 category for, say, epic fantasy, it'd be sticky, and I can count on having a month or more where I'm lingering there at the top. But now the books just cycle through so quickly that you can find yourself in the top 5 of a category on a day when you're doing a promo, and the very next day you're back down into the lower 100s, and the day after that you're in the top 100. And it's just so many people promoting books, so much chaos that it becomes a real challenge to sell ebooks if you're not unless you specifically have a better strategy for it than I do.
Have you noticed that shows do you have an ideal market, or who is buying your books? Do you notice any type of pattern?
Yes. So the thing that I mentioned before, that I needed to be aware that other people were reading my books and I wasn't just writing for me, is I somehow managed to write several books with only the vaguest idea that women were the main buyers of books. And so Bitterwood, very popular book, but it's very gory, and it's kind of all the heroes in it. There's a few female characters that you're following through, but mainly it's grizzled old battle-hardened bastards battling these dragons, and it's just this very male-focused book. And then I would go to shows and discover that men just didn't read books that much. And I don't want to be insulting to men, because I still sell, a ton of books to men. But I'm going to again pick up Life in a Moment. I will say, I mentioned I had sold 40 of the hardcovers, and I will, I don't keep the kind of detailed records on who's buying them, but I will almost guarantee you that 40 out of 40 were bought by a woman. The women buy the short story collections at a much higher rate than men do. Conversely, cryptids is probably 75% men buying the cryptid book. So, there are still genres, nonfiction especially seems to appeal to male readers. I will also say that ebooks or audiobooks are completely different territory. Whenever I talk to people, I have a sign on my desk that says, or on my table that always is lit up and saying, ask about Audible. And it is probably 70% men who say, oh yeah, I listen to Audible, driving and when I'm at work. And I'm finding, that my more manly titles, my more male gaze titles, tend to be my top audiobooks, and books that that the women are picking up in hardcover and print editions, and ebook. They don't seem to be buying the audio at the same rate. So I see the comment, something like 80% of fiction goes to women, and that was something I just was not aware of. And so I've been trying to make my catalog more, I don't want to say focused on, books that only women are going to want to read, but, just having an awareness that, oh yeah, the likely reader of this book is a woman, and I should probably really be giving some thought as to how much work and complexity I'm putting into some of these characters, some of the female characters. I think it has improved my writing greatly. The my earliest books, some of the stuff that I wrote a couple of novels that didn't get published, and I can look back at those, and the women in them were the love interests, and other than that, they didn't really have a lot of development. By the time I got to Bitterwood, I definitely had I had a better cast of females, but again, it's a very male-dominated book. And one of the biggest emails that changed my life was someone wrote me and said, I love this world, but why don't we ever meet any female sky dragons? Because I had two, a grand topping total of 2 female sun dragons in it, but absolutely zero women or females among the sky dragons. There are two races of winged dragons in my book, and so I got that just around the time I was having to write the sequel for Solaris, Dragon Forge, and I was like, oh well, this is a society of genetically engineered creatures. They started from a pool of about 20 individuals, and they couldn't breed willy-nilly. They would be, the birth defects and flaws would go up. So male and females of the species do not interact. There is a matriarch who keeps a track of every lineage, decides which dragon is going to breed with which dragon, and that is the only way that they've been able to continue the species. And so because of that, I then wound up writing tons of great female dragons, going into the perspective of the nest dragons and the ones charged with preserving the continuation of their race. So yeah, I do think I have been making my books more appealing to women as I have proceeded. I mentioned before the show started, I was writing some Bible body horror erotica novel, and part of it is because I keep asking women, what do you read? And they're like, do you have anything spicy? And I do have a little bit of spice in some of the books, but I'm just like, I'm just going to write some pure smut here. I'm listening to my market.
If I can switch this up a little bit, for anybody out there in the chat who hasn't gone through our list of shows, I think James was episode 2 or 3 of this show about a year and a half ago.
I almost put it into your show by stealing your microphone.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So that back in the days when we didn't do it live and we actually edited it, which was awful. So we saw you obviously at a couple of shows, and we went up and talked to you. How difficult is it not only doing 30 shows a year, but also finding those shows and determining which ones are worth going to and not?
Yeah, that is definitely a tricky challenge. And it's taken me a long time to get a sustainable catalog of shows. The problem is, if you want to sell, 100 to 150 books at a show, you need a show that's drawing 20 or 30,000 people. And tables at those events can be pricey. And a lot of other people who want to sell books are getting into those shows. So you've got to be very competitive. You got to be, it's a path that will weed you out pretty quickly if your work isn't up to snuff. I was lucky, by the time I started doing shows, I had my Solaris career behind me. I had my first novel published by a completely different thing. So I went into these shows with 7 books already done by traditional publishers. I put out my own editions, but I wasn't starting from zero. I think if you are just starting out, there are still small shows where there's like 1 day or 2-day shows, that an artist alley table is going to be under $100. It's worth going to them, sitting there with your 1 book or your 2 book, get a banner, partner with another author if you can find a friend to partner with, even though that you put 4 authors at a table. Greet people, smile at people. Don't just sit there and stare at your phone for 8 hours. You will, if you pay attention to the crowd, you'll learn so much even without talking to people. I get complimented all the time on the covers of my books, and it's because as people walk by the table, I can tell which covers they're looking at. I see their eyes lock in, and I'm like, oh, that cover is working. And there's other books where it's like, no one is looking at that cover. I have made a terrible mistake on this cover. And so as an indie author, I can redo covers. So I redo it all the time until I find the cover that people are going to want. As for which shows are going to sell books, this is where peers are more important than mentors. You get to talk to other people who are about at the same level of publishing as you are, and they can tell you, oh, shoot for this show, try this show. I really had been pushing to get into Gen Con for a while because I knew some authors who were saying, hey, can I try Gen Con? I'm in Steel City because, other authors were telling me, oh, Steel City is a hot show. It's totally worth it. I went into GalaxyCon just purely by chance. They used to be called SuperCon. And I was at one show, and they were starting up a show in the next town over, and they came through and were handing out flyers and say, hey, you should, I like your booth. You should apply and come to our show as a vendor. And so, sure, I'm sure they said that to everybody at that show. But that got my foot in, and now it's very tough to get in if you apply to GalaxyCon Raleigh. It can be really, really tough to get accepted. But we're locked in. We sign up for our next booth at the end of every show, and we'll just keep doing it. Also, sorry, I'm going to ramble. One of the things we do at the GalaxyCon is I made a decision a couple of years back to move out of the artist and author alleys and get a booth on the main floor. And booths are expensive, but they have advantages. A lot of these places will have a rule that is not always terribly obeyed, that you aren't supposed to split your table. So you aren't supposed to have 2 authors at a table. I see it happen all the time, but I kept being, I was paranoid, they're going to kick us out. Plus, an artist table is like 6 feet, and I just, I need more than 6 feet room now. So whenever possible, I get a corner booth. I either partner with my wife, who sells crochet, and I add my buttons, which are, a nice little passive revenue generator. Or I partner with a couple of other authors. I have, several authors that I have met at shows and know that they're, good to work with, good book salesmen, because of your all's hustling. Mike and I will be partnering up for a show later this year. I see you're out there on social media. I see you're posting, when you're at shows. So I know that you're taking a swing at it, and you're not just, hiding passively waiting for books to be sold, because that is, if there is a strategy for failure, it is the hiding from the world and hoping people find your book is the certain strategy.
You got to watch out, though, taking Mike's advice on which shows to go to.
So
I will. I'll take anyone's advice. I just did a show in Alabama. It's my first ever show in Alabama. I had a great time talking. It was a dud show, but it was in the aftermath of a hurricane. The hurricane actually missed Birmingham. Birmingham, as far as I could tell, suffered 0 storm damage. I had to drive to Birmingham through a hurricane damage zone, and it was it was pretty tense little drive. But anyway, so it was a slow show, but I got to go out to dinner with 3 other authors that were there, and they were telling me there's a show in Huntsville that I should try out. I talked to them about potentially, they're going to do a fan expo in New Orleans this year, and that's a show I've been doing for years. And I was telling them, here's where you need to look for a hotel. Here's here's some secrets about how to make the show more profitable. And don't rent Airbnbs in New Orleans. It's like that's the, you can't tell. New Orleans, unless you are super familiar with the area, it is block by block, terrific property. Horrible, property with that someone will be passed out in the front yard, and the door when you get there you'll have to peel off the police line, do not cross tape before you can touch in the code.
Good to know.
Yeah, no, stick. If you do shows in New Orleans, the magic word is Gretna. Gretna is across the river from New Orleans, and it is every advantage of being in a big city, except it's not a big city. It's a small town, and the hotels are, you can find easily hotel rooms for under $150 that are decent hotels. If you go into restaurants, you could eat breakfast for $10 instead of $30, like if you were in the French Quarters. It is Gretna is the secret hack to making an event in New Orleans profitable.
Do you find that there's obviously different shows they're going to be different based on where they are and who's running them and all that kind of thing. But is there anything that successful shows have in common when you're looking at them? Because none of them tell you how many people went through the door the previous year.
Well, some do. Some will. So, like, I do some shows with that are run by Donald Brock. He does the Soda City Comic-Con, and he'll usually send out, "Hey, we had 8,000 people at the show," or whatever. So it's not not too difficult to if you don't have exact numbers, you can still get an idea. So his shows, I like that. It is true that like I have zero idea how many actual tickets get sold to Steel City Con, but if a show's been going on for 10 years or more, and they're drawing A-list celebrities, so one of the things that that you're in for a serious show, if they've got an Avenger or or a Doctor Who, or any members of Star Trek are not that hard to find, but any big pop culture milestone, it's good to do. And then look for the oddball stuff. So Steel City, 2 of my biggest shows there. One summer, their guest of honor was Mike Tyson, and I went in thinking, are people interested in seeing Mike Tyson going to be interested in my Dragon books? And it turns out, yes, there's quite an overlap between the tens of thousands of people who turn out, for an hope of getting a autograph for Mike Tyson, and then the crowds that wander the aisles and happen to see a book about cryptids or a book about dragons and wind up, spending money. This summer, their guest was Weird Al Yankovic, who seems like a very natural fit for the Comic-Con crowd. This was the very first show he ever did, the very first Comic-Con he's ever done. And the crowds again were amazing. So look, you can kind of judge the quality by the quality of the celebrities.
But that's kind of a double-edged sword, though, isn't it? Because like Mike and I did one up in DC a few years back, right? And they had Kirk, Awesome Con, right? They had Kirk, and they had Sulu, and Michael J. Fox was there charging $2.50 bills for an autograph, and Christopher, the guy who was with him on Back to the Future. So they had a tremendous lineup, of people. But at the same time, when all the customers are rolling through spending 50 to 250 bucks a pop on signatures, that's, there's a lot less money being spent on the floor.
Okay, so you would think that, but my experience, and I'm sorry, I've heard mixed reviews about AwesomeCon. I've never done AwesomeCon. I feel like what they charge for a table, plus the high cost of hotels in the area, plus the
Parking.
very high cost of parking, just would make it a difficult show to make profitable. I feel like I would have to go there and sell 250 books, which is a pretty high bar. I've never hit that many books at a show before I could really, turn that into a profitable show. So I have, kind of pushed that one off my screen for the time being. Plus, I just hate driving into DC. It is just, if you told me, if you absolutely guaranteed me I would sell 6,000 in books over a weekend, I guess I'll do it. But if you told me I would sell four grand in books, I'm like, is it worth the traffic? Because I just, I've got such better things to do with my life. There's some shows that I know are going to be really, would generate a ton of money, but the logistics, like I'm never going to do the big San Diego Comic-Con. The cost of getting my books there and getting me there, and just trying to find a hotel and the transportation, any potential excess sales I can make would be a thing. But getting back to the cost, the thing about it's kind of elitists, but the biggest show I do, the most expensive show I do, is probably the GalaxyCon Raleigh. I've mentioned a few times. My partners and I are paying well over $2,000 for a booth space. But every family that comes through the door has probably already shelled out several $100s for tickets, and they're there to spend several $100s more for celebrities and toys and stuff. If they come by your table, they should not balk at spending 25 bucks on a hardcover, or even 50 bucks on a hardcover. I have currently have a couple of $50 omnibuses in hardcover, and they sell well at places like that. So it's easy to push them to higher price points. My partners for that show include Stuart Jaffe and Darren Kennedy. They each have $100 omnibus hardcovers, and I have seen them at show after show sell out of those $100 omnibus hardcovers, because the people who can afford to go to GalaxyCon are not like me. They can go there and you tell them well, this is $100, and they're hearing the same number I hear if someone says this is 20 bucks. That they're in a income category where 100 has stopped being a significant price point. So the again, I'm not trying to boast or brag, but it's quite common at one of the GalaxyCons for us to have people who will buy books from all of us, and we're when we ring them out, they spend $300, $400. I think we've even done over $500 in a single transaction, so don't undervalue your work. I think that is the biggest mistake that it can be rough, because you don't want to feel like you're ripping people off. I for a long time kept a lot of my trade paperbacks at $10, because it was costing me $3 to print them, and I thought, well, this is plenty of markup. $10 I'm making a profit. And I want more people to read them. But then I found out when I changed the price to $15, sales didn't drop off. They actually increased, if anything. And I partnered with Joelle, what she writes her name, JD Black Rose, at a couple of shows, and she sells all of her trade paperbacks for $20. And no one bats an eye. They pay it, and so I'm like, I probably should on some future releases. I'm probably gonna not go back and change my current books from 15. I'll probably leave them, but on new releases, I might jump right past 18 and just go to 20. Um, make your work is worth something, and it's a lot easier to turn a profit if you are, you know, if you have a relatively high price. Again, we're in an era where a lot of these shows people are probably paid $30 to park. So you're asking for $20 for a book that they can have forever, and it's a physical object that will last them far longer than the food court hamburger or that dumb parking space they just paid for. It's a true bargain, the hours of entertainment you can get for $20. So ask for what your work is worth. Don't be afraid to go to a premium item. I mentioned I'm about to release a $100 hardcover of my own. I'm doing an illustrated Bitterwood. I've got illustrations from an artist, Kevin Spain. He's finally got the illustrations to me. They are gorgeous. I can't wait to debut it. And I'm planning to sell. If I can sell 50 of those a year, I'll be extremely satisfied with the money I paid him for the illustrations.
You're muted, Mike.
I have a question for you, James.
Sure.
A lot of our viewers have 1, 2, maybe 3 books out max. When would you recommend people actually start going to Comic-Cons? And if you're not going to Comic-Cons, how do you sell your books?
Okay, so not everybody's able to do Comic-Cons. There are people, if you're in a wheelchair or have some other health issue, it is certainly plausible that that the Comic-Con path is not to you. I just turned 60 this year. I know some older authors. There's a lot of physically demanding work. I can be loading in 300 books or more. This is like several cases of 50-pound cases of books that I am lugging around and lifting multiple times over the course of a show, and it can be rough. And so there are authors who just aren't going to be able to meet the demands of doing it. That said, if you only have 1 or 2 books, there's an author named Dylan West who I follow on Twitter, who just I think he's one of the most valuable accounts to follow on Twitter. He has a kid-friendly book called Emulsipation. I think he's got a couple of other titles that he's written now. But he would go and spend, I don't know, like $20 to set up a table at his local farmer's market every Saturday. And every Saturday, he just sells this book to the kids that are there at the market. And he sells lots of books this way. I don't know that, you're ever going to sell, 10,000 copies this way, but every week you're going to be selling at least some books. So all the people on Twitter all the authors who, are posting their 0 KDP dashboards as if it's some badge of honor, no, if you're selling 0 books, it's because you have sold no books. If you are going to go out there, anywhere you can put a table, go to a street festival, ask your local bookstore if you could just set up a card table in front of their shop one Friday night and just sit there and sell books. I have done that. Put yourself out there. The more you talk to people, the more you interact with people, the more you'll zero in on your pitch. So I can sell books online partly because my online pitches are now totally shaped by what I have discovered works in the real world. So I might start off pitching a book, with one set of sentences and jokes that I think are going to work, and I find out, oh, I'm not really, landing, and so I start modifying it. And so cryptids, I actually started with a very effective pitch. I've got on the cover here, when you stare into the shadows, did the shadows stay back? And I'm like, this is looking at the actual science behind the various cryptids. And people seemed excited. I'm like, I think there's a case that, a scientific case that these are real animals, and I'm making the best case to show why these are plausible. And that sold well. But then I modified it, and I started saying a lot of modern cryptozoology is bleeding into the paranormal. You get theories that Bigfoot is a ghost or an alien, and this is, I'm trying to put the zoo back into cryptozoology. And I discovered people didn't like it when I was knocking the paranormal stuff. It was definitely selling fewer books. People wanted to retain, the possibility, that maybe they are a ghost, or maybe they are an alien. And so, I save, knocking the paranormal explanations for a chapter in this book. And my pitch, I'm still going back and emphasizing the cryptid part, and the fact that, science doesn't know everything. There's still plenty of mysteries in the world waiting to be discovered. So I've learned to get back to packaging the mystery of it as the pitch versus the, I'm going to dismiss this theory, and that was a bad way of going. With other books I've evolved in over the years, I will say that I definitely emphasized the romance in the Dragon Apocalypse series far more than I did when I first started pitching it. Back then, I mainly pitched it as a D&D style adventure, and that was very popular. That was a very effective pitch. It worked, but now I'm running into a lot of women who are reading Fourth Wing and the House of Blank and Blank, and other Court of Blank and Blank, and other fantasy romancy titles. And so I start like, well, this is a big weepy romance with a lot of stabbing, is a common pitch that I'll get for it now, if they tell me that they enjoy romance. And I have a real world story of romance behind the book, in that it's got a friends to lover plot line where two longtime friends are secretly in love but afraid to talk to each other about their feelings. And in the real world, I had been friends with a woman named Cheryl for several years. We lived fairly close to one another, when I moved to town, I didn't have a television, and I think I mentioned to her, the only thing I miss is Smallville. And she was like, "Oh, well, come over to my house and we'll watch Smallville." And so, I would go over to her house and watch Smallville and a couple of other shows, to start becoming a thing. And so for a long time, we were just, neighborly friends. We'd hang out together, we'd go hiking on weekends. But, we weren't dating. We dated other people, and so because I wrote this book, I was like, so, hey, I'm writing this book about best friends who are secretly in love. And she's like, yeah, this is about us, you idiot. How are you so slow? And so, I'm married because of this book. And so, when I tell that story, it really connects, and so women, snap it up. It's all about sincerity and genuine connections. And once you've learned to fake those, you've got it made.
Hey, where can people find you on Twitter?
James Allen Maxey, James Allen Maxey, is my Twitter handle. It's definitely my most active social media site. I post stuff on Facebook as well. There I'm James Maxey, but there's 50 James Maxeys. That said, I'm not that James Allen Maxey. That's it. I'm not that tough to track down. If you type Dragon's Gate on Facebook, you'll find a fan page for me. But Twitter, it's very easy for me to pop in. I didn't do it today because I've been just like super immersed. But today I'm editing 13 Dooms, which is the next nonfiction book I'm releasing. Frequently when I'm drafting, I'll write a couple of lines and go, "Oh, those are brilliant," and I'll copy and paste them into Facebook or into Twitter and throw up a picture of the cover and move on. And one of the things that I now do that is something I would never have thought to do at the beginning of my career is once I really commit to writing a book, I usually will have the cover ready to go before I finish the first draft. And I can just start, linking that cover, getting that cover out there beforehand. I'll show it to people at shows. And if I am seeing, any sort of hesitation or doubt after I'm showing off the cover, then I'm like, oh, do I need to go back to the drawing board? Do I need to revise this? So if you're indie author, get that cover concept out early. I tend to. I now will frequently be thinking, this would be a great cover for a book, and then I'll go, oh yeah, now what book do I write in that cover?
Right. So when is your next book coming out, James?
So 13 Dooms will be out on October 31st, Halloween. It's available for pre-order now. It's an ebook. I hopefully will have the pre-order link for the paperback up in a couple of I've got some complications with my travel schedule, so possibly as early as next week. Definitely, by the 20th or so, I should have that link up. The Amazon requires you to upload a manuscript before you can. With an ebook, you don't have to upload a manuscript. Before to do a print book pre-order, you have to upload a manuscript. And I could upload a placeholder manuscript, but I just hear these horror stories about authors who upload the placeholder and then people are getting that placeholder manuscript. And, right up through like the 25th of the month, I'm going to be, fine tuning this book, going through it page by page and line by line, and just tweaking words here and there, making sure I've got it just as polished and perfect as I can get it. If you were to read the manuscript, as it currently exists, the average person would probably walk away going, "Oh, that was a book. Yeah, it was well written. I liked it."
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm at a point where I go through and it's like, why is that word in this sentence? Does this word need to be there? And just completely wind up rewriting sentences. Today I had one sentence that ended with a question, and so I was like, do I need to present this as a question, or should I rewrite it as a sentence? And so I'm at that level of fine tuning and being picky, and whether it affects my success of the book or not is very tough for me to know. But there's
you got to be happy with it, right? I mean, you got
to be happy. You do run into every now and then into someone who's going to be sending you an email and saying, "Oh, you misspelled this word, and you use this word incorrectly," and I find those valuable. If anyone out there finds a typo in my book, feel free to send it to me. I am a bottomless pool of ignorance regarding the English language. I think I know stuff, and then I was 60 years old before I learned that I have spelled straitjacket wrong my entire life. I have spelled straitjacket with a GHT straight instead of, and it does not have the GHT. It's supposed to be straight, as in the very tight passageway that a ship or something would pass through, versus straight, just meaning, without curves. And so, so every time I have spelled straitjacket in my entire career, I have spelled it wrong. But it's a word that is so commonly misspelled that Microsoft Word no longer bothers to correct it. Another word.
As long as you're spelling it wrong consistently, you're okay.
Yeah. But then I have another book, one of my short story collections, where I did a freebie promo, and I was running through and cutting out passages of the book and posting them up. And I was posting out a passage from the last story in the collection. And I was like, holy crap, I got a typo in here. I have cabby here. I spell it Cabby. And then one sentence later, I spell it Cabbie. And weirdly, Word was not giving me either one as a correction. And so I went on and Googled it. And it turns out both are absolutely correct. One is not more popular than the other. And yet, throughout the story, I just switched back and forth. My mind, it was just like I was rolling dice to decide which way I was going to spell it. And so, I've never had anyone write me and say, hey, you spelled cabby 2 ways all the way through the story. So I now need to put out a new edition where I pick one and stick with it. But the English language is just designed to fuck you over. It is a mean instrument designed by sadists, intended to make authors look like this. I had hair before I started writing.
So did Mike. One last question for you.
Yeah.
In your travels, where are you going to be over the next month or so? If anybody is nearby, they can go say hi to you.
Well, I mentioned I was that I had to go to Alabama for my last con the same weekend that Helene came through. So Thursday morning, I'm packing up and heading to Florida. Just after a hurricane passes through. I'll be in Jacksonville, which is at the very northern end of the state, on the opposite coast. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed. The con organizers are sending out messages that that they're still planning to still planning to do the show. They've canceled Thursday load-ins and are just going to load in everybody on Friday and open the show 2 hours later, and then run as completely normal for Saturday and Sunday. Florida has some experience with this. I'm hoping that that they will they're far enough out of the direct path of the storm that they might not get that much damage, and B, if there is much damage on Wednesday, that by Thursday evening most of the northern part of the state will have power and stuff back. So I'm planning to do it. But yeah, this is the third storm of the year, or the third show of the year where I'm driving to a destination in the middle of either a tropical storm or a hurricane.
Yeah, that's tough because you don't know what's going to happen there. So
no, and I'm I mentioned my Alabama show was kind of a dud, and certainly the fact a hurricane had just had wiped out areas really not more than 50 miles distant. We're still without power. Probably suppressed a lot of that turnout for that show. I've done WasabiCon in the past. That's the Jacksonville show. I'm really hoping. I had a great time at it last year. If I can just cover my travel cost, if it's a reduced attendance, it'll still be fine. I won't mind it. My wife and I are going to have then a vacation afterwards where we're planning to do some. If anything's left of Florida, we're planning to have a week, a couple of days at least, where we enjoy it, do some biking in the area, and then after that, I have 2 weekends of Mythic and Medieval in South Carolina near Myrtle Beach. It's a Renaissance festival. Always a great show. If you ever think about doing Ren Fest, if you write fantasy, it's you won't if you write any sort of fantasy, anything with a dragon or a knight on the cover, do rent fairs. They are totally worth the money that you'll invest. Anything fantasy related is going to sell big. And then my final show of the year will be in December for Steel City Con. Mike will be joining me as a guest author at the table there. I have no idea who the guest of honor is for the December show.
It's Mike. He didn't tell you?
Mike, it really doesn't matter. So Steel City is it's just on the outskirts of Pittsburgh. It is in this ancient, decaying convention center that was looks like it was built in the '60s, and it looks like the sort of place that it stays numbered for the next time a tornado makes it that far in. But this lets them keep table costs low. So I mentioned that I pay like $2,000 for a booth at some of the big shows. I'm going to sell just as many books, and I pay under $600 for my spot at Steel City. I do some shows like Gen Con. Parking in a surface lot was $30 a day. If you wanted a interior lot, it was $42. A parking garage was $42. And Steel City is free parking. So a lot of these shows, the load in is just terrible. Heroes Con in Charlotte is just a nightmare to try to load in, and the Steel City is just so. But we've thrown open the bay doors. We're not posting any schedule. Just get here. It's a free for all, but you can roll in at any time, and it works. It's just wonderful. So I like everything about doing the show except for the 8-hour drive to get to it. But aside from that, it's really it's one of my most profitable shows because I've got low cost associated with it, and strong sales every time. And I mentioned that I hate the long drive, but the dark secret of the selling books in person is that the deduction you get to take for your mileage on your car,
mileage based,
far exceeds any actual costs. That
like 60 cents a mile or something.
Yeah, no, it is insane. That I'll be with the amount of money I'll be writing off for driving to Pittsburgh, when I've probably spent filled up my gas tank once on the way there, once on the way back.
Right.
Started with a full tank. So maybe I spend $100 worth of gas, but I'm writing off way more than that. And I know I've got I have to push an oil change a little closer, have some wear and tear. But yeah, no, the travel deduction that you get to do as a writer is pretty sweet benefit. It's like, I know it exists to make corporations even richer and make them pay less in taxes. But if that loophole is there, use it. It could turn even a losing show. So like I did a COVID show in New Orleans. So New Orleans has actually turned into a pretty good show for us, but we did it 1 year while COVID was still going on. And we went expecting a crowd of 20,000, but a COVID wave hit, and we got a crowd of like 3,000. It was not a profitable show, except, by the time we wrote off our mileage, we get to write off our hotel, we get to write off meals, and so even though we didn't get to sell as many books as we wanted, it was still basically a tax-free trip to a fun town to visit.
Yeah.
Well, all right. You give us all hope then.
Yes.
Keep
going. If you want to sell books, then go out and commit to selling some freaking books.
All right.
Do not be passive. Use every trick in your thing. I saw you just had a freebie promo, Mike.
Yeah.
Did you have you tried promoting it through any newsletters?
I talked to people about doing newsletter swaps. We've agreed to it, and then we never talked to each other again.
So I'm actually talking more about the paid newsletter promo sites like BookBub.
I've done those before. Yeah.
So BookBub is the gold standard. If you get a BookBub promo, I saw you had a ton of reviews, or at least you have plenty of reviews to qualify for it. I would not take it free for a year because they won't do anything that's been like free anytime recent, and then start just applying month after month to try to get BookBub to give you let you do a freebie promo, because that's where you'll get 30,000 downloads from for a book. That said, since you might apply for them for 2 years and never do it, then the free Booksy is the second best. And so you only get 2,000 downloads. You do usually through them, but usually the promos will pay for themselves. So earlier I said, don't discount your work. Don't sell your work for cheap. That works in person. Online though, if you're not moving books, at full price, take them cheap, make them cheap, promo them, get the readers, get the reviews, and it's better to be giving your books away and having downloads than just having them become invisible by doing nothing with them.
Yeah.
Right.
So this year was going to be my year for BookBub, and I actually I'd heard where if you go wide, they like that better than if you're Amazon only.
Yes.
So I was going to go wide, and then Kobo came back and said, no, we won't accept your book. You have Amazon. Apparently in the back I said, hey, rate my book on Amazon, and they're like, no. And it was right before I was going to set books to free, and I was like, I don't have time to change this, and I can't. So I was just like, okay, I'll table this for now, and that was back in January, and I haven't got back to it. But yeah,
take it wide. There's advantages and disadvantages to going wide. When we meet up in person, I'll give you the full hour-long spiel of every potential thing. But the BookBub will, if you can ever land it, it will change your life, at least for a little while. If you get a U.S. promotion, I've got a international promo coming up later in the month, and it'll be fine. It'll pay for itself, and it will revive my sales in places like the UK and Canada, and hopefully I'll see some momentum there. But yeah, the U.S. ones are pretty sweet, but just so hard to predictably get. You can't plan your career around them. But
yeah.
Well,
so I have one quick question for you.
Okay.
I have 3 audiobooks.
Yeah.
And I got the free promo codes, which, US, I've given out just about all of them. But how on the earth do I reach people in England to give away these free promo codes? Because I have like 35 that I'm like, I've tried. I'm like, do you want them? And then they don't answer. And I'm like, I just want to give them away because they do me no good to hoard them. Do you have any clues how to do this?
Wow, I really don't. I used to have the free promo codes used to be very important to me. And I offered up some freebies for the cryptid books when I took it live. But I really, so for a long time, this would help for the UK, I would give away the codes at shows. But then I stopped doing it because I realized I had so many people who were just like pulling up their phone and downloading the book after I told them about it. I'm like, I would rather aim for that download than give away the free code. So I stopped really pushing the free codes as much as I did. Plus, there was like this whole scam going on. I think they've got it under control, but back around 2019, 2020, there was this kind of loophole where people could get a free code, download your book, then return your book and be credited with a free credit that they could then use to purchase a full-price book.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that was So there was like a site I found where it was like, hey, we'll find readers for your ebooks. Upload your free codes here. And so I'm like, oh wow, I just gave away 50 free codes in one day. And then I was like, oh wow, I just had 40 audiobooks returned. And so I was like, that's around the point where I'm like, all right, so the freebies, I stopped pursuing them for the audio and just really chase at the shows trying to get them. And I hate, I really I really wish I had a more effective way of selling ebooks. I used to, pre-COVID, it was not unusual for me to get four figures in revenue from my audiobooks, from my all my Dragon books combined, plus I had a superhero series up, and I think I had 1 month where I got to like $3,000, and for month after month I would be at least at 1,000. And then in COVID, it just collapsed on me, and I watched as my earnings dropped down to 50, $60 a month, and the free codes I was giving out shows didn't seem to be generating enough follow through, so I eventually just gave those up. And I'm still I still sell books because I'm pitching them at the shows and people are buying them. I've got a QR code list of my audiobooks that I hand out, that I give to people and say, here, if you listen to audio, here's the QR code, download this book. And many of them will do it there, right while you're waiting, or at least they say they'll do it later. And I do see it. I see it happen. But I just don't know. Amazon ads do not seem to move it. I have a Stuart Jaffe, who I talked about. He runs Facebook ads, but he records his own audiobooks, so he's not splitting royalties with anyone. And he's got 18 books in a series. And so he can spend a lot of money to get the clicks for the first book in the series, knowing that that the read through on the later books and his higher royalty rate, by not being in a royalty share situation, are going to make it pay. Whereas I have tried Facebook ads for audio, and I've just never turned a profit with it. I just feel like I am I might, if I spend $100 in ads and then get $30 in sales, that would be a successful promo. And obviously I'm not going to continue doing that. But I'm designing a new series that will, all my current series end after 4 books. So they're either trilogies or quartets. And I'm designing a new series that I can string on for, a dozen books or more. And may try that on, once I have, a lot of audiobooks available there. I might, try that Facebook strategy, or have enough books to make it, make the read through profitable. But it's not enough if you just have a trilogy or a quartet to turn it into a profit.
All right, James, thank you not only for coming tonight, but for coming back tonight.
I love this one. This was great.
You're the first person that's showed enough courage to actually come back to us a second time. So thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. And for everybody out there in the chat, thank you for hanging out. Appreciate you each and every week.
As the first time I did the interview, I think I was balding, and now I'm just fully bald. So
you hit both of them. You're bald and balding. You're
I had to meet under both criteria.
Well, James, looking forward to talking to you at the show at Steel City. I would be pestering you the whole show unless you're selling books. So be selling books. Otherwise, you're talking to me.
You'll be too busy selling books. Well, and I say that we'll probably go and have a completely dead Friday. It's all shows are going to have the dead times, but yeah, you can I think you'll go. I don't know how many books you typically sell at a show, but I will go there and do my best to get you into triple digits.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
I've never sold triple digits, so that would be nice.
Yeah, it is. It's yeah. I without knowing what your expectations are, bring more books than you think that you could ever possibly sell.
I always do, because they're always later on the way out, and I can at least feel good about that.
Yeah, and sell. I mean, how many total books do you have in your catalog? You've got like 4 books.
I have 5 books now.
Okay, 5. Okay, and 3 of them. Or how many are in the Druid series?
4 in the Druid series, and I just launched the sci-fi in July.
I saw the sci-fi one. The sci-fi one will be interesting. I do get readers who are specifically looking for science fiction, so that will be a interesting thing to do. But you're going to benefit, I think, from the fact that I've done the show for so long that a lot of people come to my table saying, "Hey, what have you got new?" And I won't have new fantasy, a new fantasy release since my last time I was there in the summer. I have a new nonfiction book, and that's going to be all I have to offer them. But I'll now be able to say, but if you like fantasy, I've got this author here. Step over and talk to him about his Druid series, and I think you will find that is a pretty a big boost for your sales.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I've sold in the 70s like 3, maybe 4 times, and that's like my high water mark.
Okay.
So
I feel confident we can be that. That said, who knows?
right.
You
never know.
You never know. I mean, I go into some shows like, oh my God, I'm gonna this will be the show where I finally hit 200. I went to the Gen Con, like, all right, I've never broke 200 at a show. I get to like 170. I think 179 is like the most I've ever sold at a show. And so after getting to Gen Con, I'm like, all right, this is it. I'm going to swing for the fences. And no, I sold, well over 100 books, but, it was to the point where, only selling like 120 books was kind of a letdown.
No, we're not there yet. Yeah.
All right. Well, y'all do. Y'all have a great show, and then this will just be up for anyone to watch at any point.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. It'll be on our Tim.
Sorry it ran on so long. Once I start talking, it's hard to shut me up.
That's
All right,
okay.
Have a good one. Where do I click to get off here?
There
Take
we go.
care, everybody.